from basically not barely being able to go from my couch to my fridge to just setting small goals of 200 meters a day. My wife would go with me, it'd take me like an hour, and then eventually kept building more and more. Started adding one push up a day, and then one pull up a day, or one just hanging at first because I couldn't even do a pull up. And then just kept building. And now last year I did 10 Spartan races, doing handstands and doing all this other kind of crazy stuff.
All right. Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs and goal getters, to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelly Beveridge, and my special guest today, Kevin Brewer. And excited to have him here. He is on the episode today from Virginia. And just a little bit about Kevin before I bring him on to introduce himself. He is a former military veteran and athlete. He has 22 years working on classified military and federal law enforcement initiatives. He holds certifications with amazing programs such as Performance Mastery, the Heroic Performance, and now he's a coach. He's a mindset and resilience coach, mostly for men, yet women as well. And just a really great guy. He's got a real special story we're going to talk about today. And we're going to focus on health in all its modalities and really why it's so crucial in leadership, in relationships, in self-fulfillment. And so just excited to have Kevin on. So Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, excited to talk to you. I think this is such a great topic because no matter a person's background, where they've come from, where they're at a stage in their life, health is something that's a constant, and I think something to pay attention to, and that is important for us to be aware of it in our life and to be focusing on. And so I think what great place to start, Kevin, would be with a bit of your story and your background. And I know you went through quite a health journey after the military. And so if you could start with your background and your story as to why you're so passionate today about speaking about health and the importance of it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I came from a real small town. I'll say broken family. My dad was an alcoholic. We had some abuse issues down early on. I left for the military. I thought I would never enjoy the guy. Excuse me. Well, I talked to the guy again, but eventually through all this stuff, found a new realization of different things about his aspect of his life and everything too. And really found a real big appreciation for him. And had a pretty good relationship with him before he passed away last
that's awesome.
April 24. And so then I ended up going to the military from that. I spent 7 years-ish, like 2 months shy of 7 years in the military, where I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart in the military. We had 2 kids, one of them being born when I was in Afghanistan, and then going through there. But throughout all that stuff, I always rose to the ranks really fast. I was always top of my A school class, which is the class after boot camp. So I got first choice of orders. I went out to Hawaii, did sub duty out there, rose to the ranks really quick there, got to supervisor status there, made rank fast at first time every time. So I was really always up on the move. And always the big thing is because I came from a background of what people would call tragedy. And I was supposed to not succeed. I was supposed to be an alcoholic. I was supposed to be all these different things. But I just never bought into that story of what I was supposed to be. I just kept rising through the ranks because I was remembered where I came from and said, hey, I can do it better. I think there's a better way. And these people are struggling. What we're complaining about here, people get to the next rank and they would just fall back and not do what they say they're going to do. They would just do the old same thing. I was like, why did you get there then? If you talked about it down here, why did you get there and then do something different? So I was always rising through there, got to Afghanistan, again, did a lot of good stuff there. And on the way back, I suddenly got sick, got the swine flu or something, what was going on there. I had a hernia. I had sinus infection. So the whole left side of my face was completely filled with infection. And on the right side, I was half full. So I had a lot of things going on. And then I got back, I started getting treatment for that stuff as I was going through there. And then all of a sudden I was in the weight room one day and I popped something on my neck. And then it just went downhill from that point on. A lot of neurologic issues, heart rate issues, pain everywhere. I just basically became unable to do physical activity, which again, my background as an athlete in the military, do all those different things, really took away everything I believed about myself. So sports and physicality, doing things rough and rugged and everything, that was really only way I knew of how to get my emotions out, right? That was the best way for me to deal with my emotions. That's why I never had all those things bother me, because I would just go and get with somebody and we just go play basketball, be really rough on each other, some hard fouls, check me up, whatever. And then do a quick explosion. And then you're like, all right, now I can process everything. When you don't have the ability to be physical anymore, it became hard for me. So again, my family took the brunt of that. So I was more irritable, more moody. I just couldn't handle things quite as well. And as the years progressed, as I got no diagnosis, no help from medical facilitators, again, at this time frame, I was getting out of the military. I ended up getting out of the military, and it's continued through with the different doctors through the VA system, the military first, the VA, and then civilian side. Again, no help, no diagnosis, nothing. So I was just constantly just getting worse and worse. And by worse and worse, I'm talking about not neurologic issues. So like pain, disparate pain, things that don't really add up, didn't make sense. And because they're in different areas, because they didn't align, because they didn't add up to what traditionally somebody would see with a specific symptom or ailment, I was just passed off as saying, you have PTSD, it's anxiety, it's this, it's that, and just really dismissed. It was hard on me first, obviously, but I think it was actually harder on my wife, because she'd go to some of those appointments for me, and there was one specifically, and right before my worst time, where we were seeing this neurosurgeon trying to figure some things out. And he came in, we heard him in the room behind us, so I know he hadn't looked at my scans, and he went out to the front. We could hear him talking to the desk. And he just comes into the room. And I know he didn't look at my scans because I just turned them in that morning, so he didn't have time to right when I got there. Excuse me. And he walks into the room and he talks to me. He starts to let me tell my story a little bit. And I get 2 minutes in and he's, oh, you're in the military? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, it must be PTSD. And he just, that point, I didn't listen. He didn't even let me talk. My wife was so mad. She just started going off on him. I was like, hey, it's okay. Like, he's not the doctor for me. And I didn't even realize at that point, I didn't even realize until actually recently, that I was like, I'd come so accustomed to hearing that message that it no longer bothered me. But by proxy had known that maybe what was going on, or heard me talk about it, but she didn't actually ever see it. Right. So, but that was the first time she saw somebody actually like this completely dismiss me and not even like listen to me. And so she was mad as hell. She was like yelling at him. And I was like, it's not even worth it. Right. It's like, he's just no matter what we say, he's not going to help me. So just move on. And so knowing all that, seeing all the things I had gone, basically being completely dismissed, I just got a dissatisfaction for the medical system. And I'd given up on life. And one day I was in the closet and I was just, again, going through these symptoms again. I was like, symptoms being like, basically feeling like I had a heart attack and or stroke at pretty much all times, and sometimes even more intense. And then on top of that, then a panic attack would set in and then complicated even further. So I was sitting there in my closet one day and I was like, look, I'm just going to lay here and die, whatever. I don't even care anymore. I'm just done. And at the time I wasn't really particular with this person, that whole church thing. I've always believed in God or a higher power. And I was like, God, I don't really do this very much, but if you help me survive this, let me live through this. I'll help people. I'll figure this out and I'll help people figure it out too. So obviously I'm here. So I lived. So I was like, I guess I got to start figuring this out. I just started using my background as an intelligence analyst and said, all right, look, I don't know how to read an MRI or an X-ray or anything. I can look at mine. I can look at things online. I can say what looks different and then start asking more specific questions about where I see a difference. I just started doing that, going to town, figured out my own diagnosis by going through stuff on Reddit and asking people on Reddit, doctors on Reddit, based off images from MRI, things I'd find. Then I'd do more research, found a post on Facebook about something that kind of correlated. So figured out that I had a cervical instability. And then from that, I also have multiple kind of segments within my spine that were either unstable or too stiff, causing other issues to line up. So what I didn't know at the time was that really your whole nervous system runs through your spine and your neck. And so because of that, and the higher up it goes, the more nerves it affected. So that it looks more disparate, like things aren't connected because you're affecting higher set nerves. So once I got all that figured out, found a doctor in Colorado that does stem cell therapy, got out to him, got the proper diagnosis, started getting treatment, and kind of rest is history, so to speak. We went from, in 2020, the pandemic actually helped me being able to stay home. and get paid because right before the pandemic shut down, I went to work and I was like, hey, I can't even get to work anymore. By the time I get to work, I was so broken and such a panic attack. Wanted to leave in an ambulance every day, and I left 3 times from work in an ambulance because of this issue up through this through 13 years of it. So I was just broken. I was done. Then started stem cell therapy from basically not barely being able to go from my couch to my fridge to just setting small goals of 200 meters a day. My wife would go out with me, it'd take me like an hour, and then eventually kept building more and more. Started adding one push up a day, and then one pull up a day, or one just hanging at first because I couldn't even do a pull up. And then just kept building. And now last year I did 10 Spartan races, doing handstands and doing all this other kind of crazy stuff. So
Oh, it's awesome.
my health is taking a long journey. But
Yeah, Kevin. And I know that obviously there's so much in between what you're sharing as well, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
we have limited time to share your
Right.
you just mentioned 13 years,
Yep.
right? Like 13 years of health struggle and not knowing what's up and going through this. And first of all, congrats for being here and being healthy and pushing through and being
Thank you.
resilient. Like that in itself takes just so much bravery and courage and just speaks to who you are as a person. And as you're speaking, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how many people not going through what you did, yet how many people go through health challenges and they're at their lowest and they're feeling defeated and they can't get the answers, right? For what it is that is up with them so that they can keep moving forward. So I'm just curious, what would you say when you are and when you were at your lowest or just going through feeling defeated during that time in your health? How did you continue to put one foot in front of the other and just continue to search for the answer, continue to search for the solution, and move forward? What did you do?
So to be completely, I'm very transparent anyway, but there was obviously spikes, peaks and valleys in there. So there'd be months where I would really be pushing hard. I'd be fighting doctors. I'd go to the doctor's appointment and arguing and doing all those different things. And then there was months where I would just kind of give up. I would just be done and just right up, screw it. Doctors must be right, whatever. Just get in a low place and do nothing, feel sorry for myself, and then something would kick it back up. So usually would just find something else, and typically revolved around being able to help somebody else and find some kind of a purpose or a cause to fight for that was outside of myself. That was like, okay, no, I got to figure this out, or at least get through it for the most part until somebody else can figure it out, so that I can help these people, kind of thing. So in between there, I did a lot of coaching. So in terms of baseball and softball for my kids, got into travel sports, stuff like that. So, and then for a little while pursuing, and I was in leadership roles at work for a lot of times until towards the end, I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I wouldn't even pursue them because I was so broken. I was like, I don't feel like I can competently fulfill the mission and help people properly. So I just stopped seeking those positions out for a little while. So yeah, just really just found those reasons to continue to fight was a big thing. And it's almost always certainly outside of yourself rather than for yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm just hopping on quick to let you know I have partnered with my sponsors, Coach Core, because I want to promote their services because they've had such an impact and positive influence within my business. And I want everyone to know about their service and what's available to you. So if you're an entrepreneur and a business person who's been wanting to streamline your back end systems, you're going to want to listen up. And I don't know about you, but I was frustrated because as I started my business, I was realizing, oh my gosh, I need to be paying money for my website. I've got to have my calendar and scheduling going on. I've got to be paying for online course systems. I want my landing pages and my funnels and so on and so on and so on. And it was overwhelming and expensive. And so I found Coach Core and I am so impressed with their business and their values. And I've just aligned with them. And what they are is I think of them as a simple business in a box, a one-stop shop for everything that you need to grow and scale your business when it comes to your systems and being organized and the back end pieces of your business. And so if you're wanting to streamline and have everything in one place, from your website to your contacts to numerous SMS to social media, all being housed under one calendar, to your calendar, to your funnels, to your landing pages, online courses, and so on. Plus, the bonus is you get hands-on support a couple times a week. Somebody will come on and you can actually talk to a real person. and you can get your questions answered. You can get guidance around the systems. You can get support with marketing and strategies and business. And it really feels like a community while you're getting system support. And the best part is that it's extremely affordable at $97 a month, 97 US dollars. You can have all of that in one spot. And so go into my show notes and check it out. Check out Coach Core Services. Email me if you have questions, email Coach Core, and get your business organized and streamlined and your system set up so you can focus on building your business and giving your time and attention where it needs to go and scale your business to success. And so just thanks, Coach Core, for being there for me, and check them out, everybody. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I love that answer, right? It's like when in doubt, go and do your best to be outward focused or find something that does give
Yeah.
you a spark. And usually when you're doing things for other people, it puts you into a different energy. And the thing is, as you're speaking too, I'm sitting here thinking, right? Because your physical health started to deteriorate, which impacts your mental health and then your
Yeah.
emotional health. And I think that like it's health is everything, right? So
Right.
sometimes if people's emotional health isn't at its best, it's going to impact your mental health and then your physical health. If your mental health isn't at its best, that's going to start to impact your physical health and your emotion. Like it's all
Yeah.
connected. And so when you think of health, how do you define true health?
Yeah. That's a good, I've actually never been asked that question. True health, I would say, is the ability to put aside different things. Let me see.
Or
I'd say,
optimal health, true or
yeah.
optimal health,
Yeah.
right?
So it's a good question because the thing is, you'll never feel like it, I guess. It's a sense that you're, let's see, how do I want to define that actually? I say for me mentally, so let me break them down individually. So physically, I would say being able to be as capable as you possibly can, right? So constantly working. That doesn't mean you're always going to feel necessarily like the best, right? Like some things will be painful, things like that. But understanding where that pain is, why it is, where it's coming from is a big thing. So for me, that'd be it, and being able to have as much mobility as possible. So constantly working on your mobility and flexibility and just working on the dietary stuff, being able to make sure your body's got the nutrients it needs and the proper values and volumes. So that'd be the physical side. Mental is just being able to withstand these things. Like, so being able to take them and say, okay, and compartmentalizing them when needed and then processing them when necessary. So for me, I think that's what I actually really learned through this was that the only way I really processed things completely was physical before. So now I have all these other tools to be able to process them without the physicality if I don't have the ability in the moment or whatever. So that I can process them a lot faster, which means sometimes like it's even in the moment where I can just like, okay, hey, I can just go ahead and accept the reality of whatever's going on, whether I like it or not, process that and go, okay, yeah, I may be a little bit angry, but I still have to fix or finish whatever's going on and being able to understand that concept. So being able to rationalize with yourself and understand that moment, stay present, to me, that's the mental health part of it. I think emotional is just being able to not act or react through or because of your emotions, right? Understanding that you're going to have every emotion. They're there for a reason. Your body's produces them on purpose, right? So none of them are bad. We just don't typically know how to utilize them properly, or we act through them, which is usually the worst part. So being able to take your emotions and understand them in the moment, understand why they're there, how to use them properly, and how to get the most out of not just yourself, but the people around you by utilizing them. And sometimes that actually is by showing the anger, right? So you have to know when to show it, when not to. And sometimes coaching baseball and softball, right? Like this one thing is like, sometimes you just act angry. I'm not even angry, but it's like, I have to make them think I am so that they get motivated, right? So, but too much external motivation like that breaks down too. So being able to control those emotions, understand them, when to use them, when not to use them, to me would be the emotional health part of this.
I love your answer. And when we were chatting previously, you had mentioned that we have more control over our health than most people believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real powerful statement, right? Because I know sometimes my health, I give my power away, or it just is what it is, or people almost just succumb to their situations. So, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what do you mean when you say we have more control over our health than most people believe?
Yeah. So I actually think the body positivity movement is really negative for society, right? because we tell people you have no control over it. But I was 240 plus pounds because I believed that activity was the way to lose or maintain weight, because I was always skinny and or athletic looking throughout school life and everything until I couldn't do those things. But I just continued to eat like I was the week before. Right? So one of the things I started with all this mental stuff and being able to get my health back was I just started eating to say, hey, I got to take control of the relationship with food, right? My relationship with food. I got that term from somebody I used to work with. She had mentioned something like that. And I was like, because I used to say, I can't eat the same thing every day. But she said, yeah, you got to change your relationship with food. It's just for fuel. And I was like, oh, that's a really good way of looking at it. So I started paying attention to that. And then started feeling, okay, what can I control? I can control my weight, control how much I eat. So I got my sugar cravings and stuff under control and started doing that stuff. I get my portion control. I lost 90 pounds at one point by just diet and exercise, not exercise, I should say, just diet. I couldn't exercise. So I lost 90 pounds, not even walking. I couldn't move. And it wasn't through starvation. I was never hungry. I wasn't anything like that. It was just the way I ate. It's controlled the types of food I ate, the things like that. And I realized within that process, as I learned that my psoriasis started going away, I dropped all the medications I was on. I was on rheumatology medications for psoriatic arthritis, and all that stuff cleared up. Now I can get it to come back really fast by eating like crap. I can go out and eat and stuff. I know what I can eat, and it comes back really fast. So I know I have to maintain that. But I used to have GERD, I used to have psoriasis, I have all these different things. And if I eat wrong, it comes back quickly, very quickly. My joints will start hurting if I eat too much sugars and things like that. So it's not really complicated for me to figure out what is or isn't working for me. Now I have a lot of pain and or external signals, so it's easier for me to tell really quickly. But things that they tell you that are quote unquote healthy, like broccoli, for instance, right? Like it may be for some people, but not for everybody, right? And I think that's what people get mixed up. That like these blanket statements of like, hey, all this stuff's healthy for you. So then you get so convoluted and going like, I have to have variety, I have to have broccoli, I have to have this, all my, but broccoli bloats me a little bit, right? So I started getting a little bit of bloating, a little bit of inflammation, and I can track this through my weight scale, right? So every single day I weigh myself. Some people get obsessed with it in a negative way. I look at it as like, hey, I need to know what my food did to me yesterday. If I'm up a couple pounds, I know I'm holding on to water and or inflammation. If I'm down a couple pounds, I may be sick or something like that. Maybe something going on there. But generally speaking, I'm not the same weight every single day. And that's all I'm looking for. It's just a volume, density meant. So, and then from that point, I can start going, okay, do I want to gain or lose weight, right? So I can now do that on purpose via exercise for me now, exercise and everything. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you have control of that because our gut is one of the biggest components to our, what's it called? Immune systems. If you don't have your gut under control in terms of internally, not externally, but the internal part of your gut is not healthy, your rest of your body can't be healthy, right? So I think it's like 80% of your serotonin is produced in your stomach, actually, rather people don't realize that. So like even your mental health, you can't even really be mentally healthy if your stomach's not healthy. So if you don't control that first, then you won't have any control over any part of your health because your system's all breaking down from the get-go. So by just controlling your nutrition and everything and getting it under control and really just experimenting and saying, hey, what do these things that I'm eating or what are they doing to me, right? And monitoring that. Now it may be for a couple of days it raises up because your body's like initially reacting to it. And then after a couple of days it comes down. But use that scale as a measurement tool rather than something to freak out about. I don't really care what the number says. Like, I just want to know, did it change significantly over a day or two? Because you're not gaining fat, you're not gaining muscle that like it's going to take either way, you're going to take time. So if the scale alters that quickly, your food's doing more than you're realizing. And it's not holding, it's either holding to because it's not, your body doesn't know what's going on, or it's dumping because it's freaked out. So there's always things going on that you have control over that you just don't realize.
Yeah, you just shared so much wisdom there as you're speaking too. I'm thinking like, that's a crazy stat you just dropped that like really what I heard, I'm paraphrasing, yet that our gut literally is dictating how healthy we are in our brain, in our
Yeah.
mental state, in how we choose to think, right? So if it's impacting our mental health, Like for some people, it could just be cleaning up their diet. And
Right.
it's all connected, is what I'm hearing you say too, which is important. And the other thing is, and you had mentioned this before, and I've never heard it shared like this before, yet I agree 100% that health is a skill.
Yeah.
And I'm taking a course right now to speak to exactly what you're talking about, learning about what's good for me and my body. I'm 47, I'm in
Mhm.
perimenopause, my hormones are all over the place. And it's not just a one trick pony, do this and things are going to improve. So I'm taking a 4-month course where we're like looking at like our gut and inflammation and what foods are good for me. Right. And it might not be the same for my friend who's sitting beside me, yet I'm realizing it is a skill because I'm having to change my habits. I'm having to change the way I think about food. I'm having to change some of my beliefs about what to eat and when to eat and all these things, and then practice it every single day. And that's what building a skill is. It's through repetition. You get better at something, you grow your competence in something, and then you grow your confidence in something,
Yeah.
and your skill improves, and then your results improve. And so I've never thought of it like this before. So if you're listening, the listeners, health is a skill, right? And what is your skill set and how much do you pay attention to it? And it's all connected. And so, first, speaking of this, let's use this as a segue into leadership because I'm thinking if health is a skill and it's all connected, my physical, my mental, my emotional, well, I'm thinking that's leadership of self. If I'm going to start to
Mhm.
take control over this, that's a leadership of self equation. So, how does physical and mental health play into being a leader personally and then of others?
So I'm a big believer in how you conduct yourself outwardly. Is your name is your brand, so to speak, right? So I'll just put it that way.
Mm.
Your name is your brand. So the way you look, the way you act, the way you conduct yourself is more telling than anything you can ever say to anybody. And I think for me, that was why I was struggling so much then towards the end, especially to be able to even want to take leadership positions because I knew I was getting out of shape, completely overweight. I couldn't think mentally. I couldn't get to work. I couldn't do all these things, right? That's just not who I want to present myself as being. And nothing, I'm not trying to disparage anybody. If that's why you want to be. That's just not how I've ever been. That's not how I believe I'm best, right? So, and that's why I was looked at as like, if I can't be my best, in some capacity, right? Like I shouldn't be at that position. Like it's actually a disservice to everybody else to be able to do that. So taking care of yourself should be you first and foremost, because if you can't lead yourself, then how can you expect anybody to believe that you can lead them, right? If I can't love myself, how can I show them that I love them, right? And not in a romantic way necessarily. I heard when I went to a baseball coaching conference one time and it's really stuck with me is that they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so to me, it's using that, right? It's like, if I can't even show you that I care about myself, how can I even pretend to care about you? It's a fake care, right? Like almost like, hey, I'm gonna throw everything at you and I'm willing to die because I'm not trying to actually live, right? Like, how is that leadership to me? And not in terms of stepping in front of a bullet for somebody, right? It's like, no, it's, hey, if I actually completely dismiss my own health to try to help you, isn't that more selfish than if I would take care of myself first? Because if I can only have 5 years to help you out because I didn't take care of myself, or I can take care of myself and last 10, 15, 20 years, isn't that more effective? Isn't that better overall? So to me, it's selfish to say, I'd rather die early and not just because I want to give you every single thing. But in reality, they don't need that much. And if they do, well, then you're doing too much. You're not actually leading, you're doing, right? Like you're doing everything for them. So you're not leading them somewhere. So I don't know if that kind of answered it.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I'm just sitting here thinking as you're speaking about leadership as well. We're talking to an audience of entrepreneurs and business people, and usually entrepreneurs and business people, like in a selfless way, they will work themselves to exhaustion, right? They'll work themselves to burnout. They are willing to do whatever it takes. They're putting in the hours, they're sacrificing. Yet, unfortunately, usually one of the things that gets sacrificed is our health along the way, right?
Mhm.
And so, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs who are listening to this and they've been living their life where health is secondary or
Mhm.
third, lower on the value spectrum? What guidance could you give those entrepreneurs? What guidance could you give those entrepreneurs to start to implement health practices and shift their mindset that it's okay to start to put your health first. It's actually going to improve your business.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the biggest thing. You can see that on like Survivor shows, right? So this is why the thing that's like watching Survivor shows, like you see the extremes of things, right? It's like when you start to get unhealthy or malnourished or things like that, you actually make worse decisions. You take bigger risks that aren't necessary, things like that. So when, like you said, like you do anything it takes, right? That kind of thing, like the mentality you're saying. That's good if you're implementing it the right way. Hey, whatever it takes also means maybe hiring out for something that, is taking up too much of your time. And you hire for somebody that does something you don't want to or is better than you, right? And when you hire them, then you trust that they can do it rather than micromanaging them and saying we don't compete with them, so to speak. Like you just let them do it and then you take your time and do something else. Now that could be an hour a day of actually just focusing on your health. Because if you actually just get a little bit of solidarity, some little time alone to be able to think through things, sometimes you realize what you're doing is actually the wrong thing. You get better clarity on different things. So when you take time to actually improve yourself physically, mentally, and all those different things, you think clearer, you make better decisions. The people around you are able to make better decisions. You also actually get out of their way because most of the time we actually end up being in their way because we hired them for a purpose and then we step on their toes by trying to micromanage everything. So yeah, taking that time and stepping back and go, oh, you know what? Hey, and again, that kind of actually goes back to what I just said a little bit ago too, is like, if you believe that you can't step away for 5 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, a day, take a week, whatever it is, and your business will fall completely, like you don't really have a business, right? Like, you don't have employees. You have people that are just like waiting for you to do everything for them and tell them what to do. But again, you're not leading, you're not being a business owner, so to speak. You're just, you are the business. And that's a negative thing overall. So if you prepare your people properly and you show them, but also that you take care of yourself and you show them that it's a good thing to take care of your health and stuff, they will then do it themselves, which then means your business again will get a secondary outboost and thrive even more because now the people will care more. They'll make better decisions. They'll be healthier and more likely to do things the right way. So there'll be less overall problem.
Yeah, and like you're basically saying, it's just got a positive ripple effect throughout your business, your organization. And I think, and I went through this struggle because my kind of story is from hustle to harmony, right? I'm like, no, I got to be doing, I got to right, and being really grippy on like being involved in everything in my business and working and grippy with my time. That if I give up time in my business to focus on myself, well, something might happen over here. So I think the cool thing is when we talk about health and that it's a skill set, is that it also causes us to level up in our beliefs about our business and how we're being an entrepreneur and how we're being a leader. So I love what you just shared. And I think the cool thing about it too is that it's not just a ripple effect in the results of our business, it also then becomes a ripple effect in our family life and our personal life. So, can you speak to that? Because you talked about going through this health journey for 13 years and how you went backwards for a while with your mental health and it impacted your family. What did you see start to happen though when you became resilient and started to regain your health and do things differently and build yourself back up? So how does being healthy impact those around you?
Yeah. So again, I think again, sets the example, shows them like that, hey, I can go down really low and then come back up. So then they believe that they can do the same, right? It also helps me then be able to look back and say, so staying in that selfish moment and see what maybe they're struggling with and maybe what I can be better in helping them with. The example I'm setting, things like that. Like, am I overreacting to different things because of whatever health thing going on? And how can I improve that? How can I make amends for that? Like, I don't really like the word sorry because I think, generally speaking, like people saying sorry is just overused, right? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, but you don't really learn from it. So for me, I like using the word making amends. Like, how can I make up for it and show that I've learned from this experience? So I think for me, that's the big thing is like being able to do that again and be able to recognize, step back from out of myself, saying out of that, like basically fight or flight, the whole like I'm dying phase and going, okay, I don't have to like worry about that now. Let me look outward again. And go, what am I doing that's affecting them? What can I do? How can I change that example? How can I show them what boundaries look like again? things like that. Because I think obviously then you start to get loose with your boundaries and all these different things. So reestablishing all that, it can be bad at first, right? Like you're going to have a little bit of a downward turn because humans as a nature are like equilibrium, right? So if I'm chaos at first, as I turn to peace, somebody else will pick up chaos in the house, right? So you have to remember that too, because we want to find that balance. And right, that to them, that's also the balance, right? So there's somebody in chaos and somebody in peace. So if I'm initially the chaos and I turn to peace, somebody else can turn to chaos at first. And then we have to find that balance again. And so we have to be able to remember to work through that. And if I'm not mentally strong enough to handle that or know that, then obviously then it's going to fall out of balance again. And maybe I'll fall back into that. So being able to recognize that.
Interesting. I'm curious because as you're speaking, I don't feel like ego from you at all. Yet, being somebody with your background and what you've gone through, and athlete, high achiever, all of those things, did you have to work through that with what you went through to be who you are today? Like, maybe talk a little bit about how you've let go of your ego, and that's why you're allowed to have the health you do now and be the leader you are now and have the coaching practice that you do now, because I don't think that you would be where you are today if your ego was running the show.
I've actually switched on this a little bit because I actually heard something today that kind of thought made me think differently. Is that ego, if you didn't have an ego, you wouldn't be alive, right? Because you'd be a drone effectively. So having some ego is not bad. It's when you allow that ego to run or ruin things, get overinflated is when it becomes a problem. I think so. But to answer your question, I think coming from humble background, coming from basically, we grew up in a trailer park, literally I was in a trailer park for a while, and alcoholism and all those different things, and having all that stuff affect me early on. I always knew that I didn't want to forget where I came from. And so I was having that background going like, all right, I'm not better than anybody else. I just maybe make better decisions. Again, I've been around so many people that did make better decisions. So I know what that can be. Having that mentality of being able to stay within that and has been really helpful. But I will say though, when I was at my worst physically and mentally with my health was when my ego was actually the worst, because I actually believed at that point, the only thing I had to offer the world was my intelligence. And if I wasn't more intelligent than everybody around me, then I was useless to them because I physically couldn't do anything. So that was when my ego was the worst. And that's because I had to be right. I was no longer working to get to right. I was needing to be right because that was, I thought, the only thing I offered to people. So I think to me, that's where the ego becomes a problem. And now knowing that, now seeing that, I think is when I've been able to step back and go, okay, am I trying to be right too much right now? Or am I trying to get to right? So I have to check myself a lot. And it doesn't always work out perfectly, but
Of course, we're humans. We're works in progress too. So, Kevin, okay, so just like in the way of starting to wrap up, I have a few more questions and I want to know where we can find you. Yet, is there anything else that you just want to speak to the audience about when it comes to your health and leadership and just living your best life? Is there any last things that you just want to make sure that you share?
just step back for just a second because you mentioned being perimenopause and things like that. Women who are premenopause, actually, this is actually really important. Is men and women try to do the same thing, but we're completely different anatomically and everything. And that's actually even hormonally, we have different. And a women's cycle is a 20 to 30-day cycle. And within that cycle, and I forget the exact numbers here, but I think it's like 3 or 4 different phases within them that all have different spikes of a different hormone. And each of those hormones requires a different nutritional intake. So one week you may need more carbs, one week you may need more protein. And even your training, if you're doing any kind of physical training, should alter. That's why a lot of athletes have irregular periods because they don't understand those training cycles within those hormonal spikes. There's a book called In the Flow by Elisa Vidia. Yeah, at TTI that kind of goes through this. And I actually know that because I have a wife and a daughter. So I end up like learning about this and trying to help because I was the big component. You got to do this. You got to be in the schedule. So I was actually screwing them up by trying to get them on the same thing because males have a 24-hour hormonal cycle, whereas females have a 28 to 30 day. So I can do the exact same thing every day, but you can't. So you can do it every day for a week and then you have to cycle through a different thing. And then postmenopausal women are back on a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So it's not healing is bad. They can get more of a cycle as a man, but that's actually an important component I wanted to bring up. So,
That's awesome. No, I love that. And a lot of women listen to my podcast, and a
right.
lot of are my age that are listening to this
Yeah.
podcast. The more we can educate ourselves, once again, it's
And,
about
and I
ourselves.
think I always used to think that I was like, oh, it's disgusting. I don't talk about women's periods, but it's like being a father and a father of a female. I actually think it's more important now that men also know this because you're going to screw your kids cycles and habits and everything just because you don't understand because you think it's weird to talk about. It's important to them. So it's
That's
not weird. It's just necessary.
Well, that's cool, Kevin. That's like a great, speaking of leadership, right? Leading the charge with that with men. Like, how can women understand men better and how can men understand women better? Every area of life, super important. And
Yeah.
so, Kevin, where can people find you? So, if they're listening to my podcast and they're like, I want to know more about Kevin and what he's up to and what he has to offer with his coaching, where can people find you?
The biggest place right now is on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Coach Kevin Brewer. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can look me up on LinkedIn and get me there. My website's getting developed. That was also learning about. Speaking of, I was trying to do that myself, trying to rebuild it, and it was not going well. So I just like finally just said, all right, I got to save some time and iron this out. This is ridiculous.
Awesome. Cool. So we'll put those links in the show notes so people can look you up and just see what you have to offer. And definitely check out Kevin. And so I'm curious, I have a few last questions. So you've been through quite the journey up until now. So what would you say is your definition of success today?
I think being able to accomplish the task at hand. And to me, success is never ending, right? So like no matter what you did yesterday, if you're successful yesterday, today's a new day, you have to rebuild that success. To remember that all the time is like, hey, I can't just continue to hang on my past success. What am I going to do today? What am I doing tomorrow? So it's a kind of revolving thing. It's like like I said, being able to accomplish the things you're setting out to do, or at least learning from those experiences, because you may not win, right? You may not fulfill that promise, so to speak. But if you're attempting, to me, that's still successful because you're working towards it, legitimately working towards it, not just saying it, right?
Yeah.
Legitimately working towards it. To me, that's success.
Oh,
That's
no,
success.
I like it. And okay, so what would be 3 tips you would give the listeners to unleash their inner greatness?
First and foremost is radical acceptance of where you are. It doesn't really matter what you want. You just have to accept where you are, what's happening, everything around you. If you can't accept it and realize it, then you're constantly fighting reality. You're never going to win. You're always behind, right? So then you're going to get your body in disarray. You're going to get your mind in disarray. So being able to radically accept where you are, to be able to make decisions from that point is first and foremost. 2 then is awareness of how your body is reacting to different stimulus and things like that. Like if you are trying to reroute your reactions or being able to control your reactions, if you don't know when you start to slip, then you will never be able to catch it on time, right? So being
Mm.
aware of what's going on, your actions and reactions. So awareness. And then just remember the power of yet. You may not be where you are yet. You can just add those 3 little letters to any end of any sentence. Right? Like it's a very powerful statement being able to say, okay, I'm not where I want to be yet. I haven't lost the weight I want to lose yet. I haven't achieved the health I want to yet. I haven't, whatever. You can just keep adding it unendingly. So just remembering the power of those letters.
I like that because yet is like it's coming, it's happening, it's on its way. It's just not here yet, right? So
Yep.
it's an empowering statement, which I really like that. And so simple to do.
Yeah.
And so, okay, last question. What would be a call to action you would give the listeners today who are on here and they're doing what you just did? They're like, they're describe what you just described, right? So they're in their way of success. They're like, taking radical responsibility for where they're at. They are like, okay, so what can I now have some awareness around?
Mhm.
And I'm not quite where I want to be with my health yet. Yet, what's something they can do when they hop off this episode to implement this week? What would be a call to action that you would give them to go and participate in for themselves?
Yeah, find the smallest thing possible that's even laughable to start with. So I started knocking out my sugar cravings. It was literally like I just told myself, one time a day when I walk by something and I want it, I'm going to say no. It's just one time. And as that got easier, it was then 2 times. And then as easier as one day. Right? Same thing when I was trying to remember or get back into being able physical after I started getting my treatments was 200 meters. It was like literally not very much, right? Like most people can do that in like less than a minute, right? Or fastest guys in the world do that 20 seconds. It took me like an hour. Like, so I was just like, hey, let me just start there. So start the smallest thing that's even laughable to most people and just one push-up, right? Like, hey, if you can't do any push-ups, let's just get one push-up or just hold it. All right. Just try to go from the ground up to the full push-up, go from the ground up. Start laughably small and then just keep building, right? As that becomes easier, not easy, easier, add something, right? And just keep going from there.
I love that. It reminds me of Ed Milet's message, the power of one more, right?
Yeah.
Like just start where you can and then just keep adding one more,
Yeah.
right? Adding one more. You're such a great example of that. And I just want to end with acknowledging you because you literally just talked about how it took you an hour to walk 200 steps.
Meters. Yeah.
Okay, 200 meters. And you just said that you just are crushing Spartan races, like doing handstands. So like that your messaging is so true and so real, right? And everybody can start there. So just Kevin, thanks so much for being resilient and being the person you are and being such a loving and caring family man. I can tell that you really love and care about your family and are just such a phenomenal husband and a phenomenal father and a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal leader because you're being the example, right? You're in integrity with everything that you talked about today. So just really appreciate your time and appreciate you showing up here. And I love your message. And everybody can use some extra messaging around taking the time out to care about yourself and care about your health.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Kevin for coming on the episode today. And we didn't even dive into his full story. I mean, 13 years battling with health due to being in the military and just what he went through physically and mentally to then regroup and rebuild himself and his health and his life one step at a time. It just takes so much courage and bravery. So thanks, Kevin, for coming on and just sharing your story and your wisdom and the importance of health. And so if you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to go back and look at and listen to episode 45 with another special forces veteran that we had on, just talking about leading your life with courage and just a phenomenal story there as well. And then tune in next week where we're going to be talking to Sahil, who is a mountaineer, an entrepreneur, just a phenomenal man. And he helps leaders and entrepreneurs live a zero regret life. How cool is that? And he does this through supporting you in decluttering. So not adding more things to your life, yet letting go and decluttering many different areas of your life. So tune in. We had a phenomenal conversation there. And just once again, thank you so much for listening with love, greatness, and success. It's your host, Kelly Beveridge.